In this video, I'm going to consider the different types of sensory imagery that you can use to easily make your descriptive writing more impressive. Imagery is descriptive writing which conjures up a picture or idea in the reader's mind. When we describe things, it's really tempting to use visual images and describe what something looks like. This can be really effective, especially if you're using interesting vocabulary or engaging similes or metaphors. However, it's worth remembering to appeal to some of our other senses too, such as our sense of hearing, smell, taste, or touch. I'm using one of my dogs to model for this sensory language slide to illustrate how we can appeal to the 5 senses when we're writing. Visual imagery is what we tend to go for initially when we write, but let's also consider auditory imagery. We could use simile and metaphor and other devices to describe what can be heard. This might be thunder, music, dogs barking, traffic, children laughing, or nothing at all, an eerie silence. We could also use olfactory images to describe what we can smell. This could be a pleasant scent or aroma, or a foul stench or odour. By appealing to the reader's sense of smell, your writing will become much more evocative, i.e. it may trigger memories or conjure up a deeper understanding of your writing in the reader. Another type of imagery is gustatory imagery, which describes what we taste, and of course this could be pleasant and sweet or startlingly bitter. Obviously, if you're describing a scene which involves food, you'll need this type of imagery. Finally, looking at the dog's crossed paws will remind you to use tactile imagery. This describes what we feel or touch and whether it's hot, freezing, sharp, soft, or comforting, etc. When I discuss sensory language in school, I often use Laurie Lee's writing, for instance his autobiography, Cider with Rosie. If you read this beautiful book, you will be able to picture exactly where he grew up in the Cotswolds. When he describes the grass, it is tattooed with tiger skins of sunlight rather than simply green. So if we describe the little dog's face, its colour is black, white and tan. However, we could say she wore a corrugated frown across her badger face, which hints at the colour and also her expression. Look at her appearance and think about how you would describe it. If we want to describe the scent of something in the picture, we could focus on the spring flowers, the daffodils. Laurie Lee describes his garden in summer as having a tropic heat which oozed up from the ground. You can imagine the sense of warmth which makes you feel lazy, and this is also evoked by the long vowel sound in oozed. We could appeal to the sense of touch by describing the sun on the dog's back or the damp dew beneath its bright white paws. She looks as if she's listening intently, so we could describe what she hears. For instance, her ears pricked as the sound of a screeching buzzard severed the skies. We could also use gustatory imagery. The remnants of a favourite treat tickled her tongue, and we could even describe the sense of anticipation associated with taste. She sat stock still, awaiting the next treat. Here are some more of my animals, twin lambs. Let's practice appealing to the senses as we describe them. I'm going to use visual imagery, tactile imagery, and auditory imagery. I'm going to avoid boring adjectives like cute or fluffy. Instead, we could use a metaphor, snow white, to describe their colour. Although, as you can see in this picture of my ewes in the snow, not all white sheep are snow white, certainly not in winter anyway. Perhaps one of the lambs is, the one on the right. We could describe his legs or socks as white as snow. If we look closely at their ears, notice the pink of the blood vessels visible through their delicate skin and the petal shape of them. Look also at their dark pools of eyes and their little noses and think about how you would describe the way that they look. When describing their coat or fleece, adjectives like fluffy are too simplistic. Sheep have oily, waterproof coats, unlike goats, for example, and you might notice the wrinkled lines of the wool across their stomach or the corrugated appearance of it. Even as newborns, their fleece is very dense and their wool is tightly coiled like a spring. If you can remember playing fuzzy felt as a child, it feels very much like that. And in terms of auditory imagery, Often when little lambs call, it sounds a bit like children in an infant's playground. They all bleat slightly differently. Some are very gentle or even mournful, but some are loud and insistent when they call for their mothers. When they move, they are pretty quiet and graceful, like dancers or deer. You only hear the rustling of the vegetation that they push through. A good way to practice descriptive writing is to look at a picture of your pet or a holiday photo. Practice makes perfect, so try to use all the different types of sensory imagery in your writing. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found this video helpful.